The terrified girl tried to fight back, but Isaac was overpowering her. He roughly pounded her breast before savagely grabbing her hair and forcing his tongue down, sobbing young girls on the throat, who responded by chomping down so hard as he could at Isaac's tongue. Jack watched with wide, incuriosity eyes as his old friend released his new playmate and clutched his mouth as it filled with warm red blood. The frightened girl fell off the bed and dropped down on the floor as he scurried towards the exit. Isaac quickly lurched forward and was able to catch his fleeing plaything by the end of her dress. Reaching back, he wheeled a lit candlestick off the nightstand beside him and with all his might bashed in the back of the young woman's head, which burst open with a ripe watermelon. Thick blood splattered across the room as the girl's body stood on the ground for several seconds before going completely still. Blood was everywhere. Some droplets even managed to get on Laughing Jack's box, who was very much enjoying the show for the first time in 13 long years. A smile began to creep across Laughing Jack's face, and all of a sudden a chuckle escaped from the cold lips, and another until Laughing Jack was cackling and howling laughter from inside the steel box. What a wonderful and fascinating game, Jack thought, as he watched the motionless girl, golden blonde hair flow red with blood. As the airline began to mellow, Isaac realized he had to dispose of the body. He picked up the girl's lifeless corpse and plopped it on the bed. He left the room, closing the door behind him and locking it before leaving the house. He returned almost a full day later and re-entered the room, bringing with him a metal garbage can and his bag of only tools from work. He then cleared everything off the wooden desk on the wall opposite to the door and then dragged the bed with a bloody corpse onto the middle of the room. This not only gave Isaac room to work, but also gave Laughing Jack a front row seat. The whole sat there. Jack would watch the big, unfading grin as Isaac played with his new game with Solely the corpse. Once Isaac was all set up, he had to go to work. Once he dumped out the contents of the big tool bag onto workable behind him, as inside of knives, hammers, pliers, and other tools were now laid before him. His first pick was to curl up the knife, which he used carefully to skin the body. The skin was then placed into the rocks and stretched and turned to leather. Once that, he pulled it into place. Isaac then used a hand saw to saw off the arms and legs and head, and disturbing the home of several families of maggots in the process. After filling the garbage can with bleach and other foul chemicals, he singered the limbs until the meat was stripped from the bones. Isaac fished the bones out of the sooty corpse juice, placed them on the work table. Then he covered of night and brought the trash can outside and dumping the rotting remains into the living sewers to be swept away into the harbor. For the next 3 days, Laughing Jack watched the with wonderment as inspired Isaac craft once a human entity into the grosser abomination. The former was made into black legs of Luther, white with the feet still attached to the corpse, was made into a foot chair legs. A wooden frame was used to be the base of backing of the chair. However, the rim of backing was crafted using spinal bone. The arm bones were used as the arm of the chair and were fastened in place by some ribs. Now the leathery flesh was sewn onto the seat and backing of the chair, and the golden blonde hair was braided into a lining for the base. At the top of the climbing chair, sat the skull once belonged to the girl who had the golden blonde hair, the splendid eyes, and the smile that could melt hearts. Isaac was quite pleased with his work. Laughing Jack was too impressed by his older playmate's profound creativity. After that night, Isaac never touched another drop of alcohol again, for he now possessed a much more thirst. In the following weeks, Isaac made several improvements to his little workshop of horrors. He removed the mattress from the bed and put a raw, thick wooden plank for its place, and then he fastened arm and legs restraints to the bottom of the sides. This would mean he would be able to entertain his guests for a longer period, without them trying to any rude escape attempts. Isaac needed only final thing before planning another ghost-type party. He worked on it for a week straight, hand carving it out of wood. After a coat of white paint was applied, Isaac's creation was complete. It was a wooden mask representing something he would wear at a veteran's masquerade ball. It had a frown bow and a long troll-like nose. It would allow him to strike fear in the hearts of his beloved guests. With his new face complete and the room transforming into a bloody murder nest, it was finally time for Isaac Lee Grossman to bring home a new playmate. That following night, Laughing Jack watched the mask. Isaac Grossman stomped up the stairs carrying him a large burlap sack with the new victim within it. He dumped the bag onto the torture bed and plopped a bound gag in. Very frightened young boy, probably only 5 or 6 years old, Isaac quickly undid the boy's binding and held him down as he restrained his hands and feet to the steer bed frame. Tears streamed endlessly down the boy's helpless little face. As Isaac laid out his tools and friendly weapons, Isaac returned wielding his pair of rusty pliers and wasting no time. He slid the bottom of the jaw's pliers under the boy's fingernails on the right index finger and clamped it tightly. The child's eyes quivered as he began to murmur through his gag, begging Isaac to let him go. Isaac smirked as he slowly bent the pliers backwards and painfully applying the first fingernail. The boy screamed even though his gag has withered in agony on the wooden boards, his fingers beginning to gush with blood. Isaac then moved onto the boy's middle finger, firmly grasping the nail with the rusty pliers. Once again, he jerked the pliers back, but this time the nail only tore off halfway. The boy yelped in pain as his fingers twitched and shot with blood. Clamping the half-fly off nail, Isaac gave another yank. The nail tore off, but not without taking a good deal of skin tissue with it. Even Isaac was pretty revealed by this painful sight, unlike spying Laughing Jack, who was crackling with joy at the disturbing actions which he watched from within his old dusty box. Isaac returned to the workbench and swapped the pliers for a large iron hammer. Then he made his way to the foot of the torture bed where, with one hand, he held down the boy's left leg. He raised the hammer high above his head as the boy cried and pleaded for mercy through his dirty gag. Then, with all his might, Isaac slammed the hammer down onto the boy's bare kneecap, shattering the bone into a gravel with a loud crack. The child convulsed in pain with shrill screams, muffling through the cloth the gag tied tightly to his face. As the child struggled with intense pain, Isaac placed the hammer down on the wooden bed and returned once more to the workbench where he equipped himself with a long sharp knife. Without delay, he began carving useless worm into the child's quivering chest. When he finished, the boy was barely conscious. Isaac knelt down and whispered into the boy's ear, "This is what happens to rhyme children who make nasty faces at people." The children's eyes filled with tears. Once final time, Isaac began to carve the skin off the boy's face. But to Isaac's surprise, the boy was still clung to life. The mutilated child just stared up at Isaac with big round eyes, which filled Isaac's back heart to rage and hatred. "Even without a face, you're still an ugly little," Isaac shouted as he picked up the hammer from the foot of the bed and began to bash the poor boy's skull in. He smashed it in over and over until there's nothing but a bloody carved mass of flesh, pouring with the thick red blood and oozing out. Clutches of brain matter formed across the room. Laughing Jack observed the grand finale, which had lived up to expectations quite wonderful. Isaac's next guest was a blind old woman who he had invited over for some tea. It took her almost 5 minutes to realize the chair she was sitting on was crafted using humans' remains, and other 6 minutes to find the stairs, only to topple down the stairs, screaming like an iron. Isaac decided to end the cruel joke there with simply ice pick through her eye socket. After that, he brought over a little girl who he force-fed broke glass before using her stomach as a punching bag. As the weeks went by, more and more unlucky souls met their end with Isaac's Grossman attic. and the mad, gross man personality became more dark and sarcastic. Laughing Jack's personality followed suit while he rotted within his dusty box until one very December night, the rusty nails that were holding up the shell of the forgotten knickknacks finally gave way and the whole thing plummeted down to the ground. Isaac heard the loud thump downstairs and decided to climb up to the attic to investigate. He walked across the bloody stained wood floor of the attic over towards the fallen shelf. Isaac brushed aside some twinkles that broke in the crack. When he finally came across Jack in a Box from his childhood, Isaac barely recognized the old tattered box. He picked up it and blew it off some dust, and then whatever next reason, he decided to grasp the box rusty clink and began to turn it. A horrible off-key Pop Goes the Weasel clang from the worn-out box, and it reached climax. Isaac swung along with the final verse. Pop Goes the Weasel. The top of the box swung open, but nothing happened. It was empty. Isaac expected as much as he tossed the old box in the garbage with the other broken knickknacks. After the mess was cleaned up, he went to open the door to go back downstairs, but it was stuck. Isaac pulled hard, but the door wouldn't budge. Just then he heard the most horrible, gaspy voice call out for him. Isaac! A cold ran down Isaac's spine as his hairs on the back of his neck stood straight up as he slowly turned around. All the way around the room by the garbage, he stood, the nightmarish Laughing Jack. He was completely merciless as his mangled black hair swung down in twisted locks, sharpening gagged teeth, disoriented his twisted grin, and his arms hung down like ragdolls with his gross and long fingers nearly scraping the floor. Then with a bone-chilling, gaspy voice, the fiendish clown spoke. How nice is it to finally be free? Did you miss me, Isaac? Isaac was paralyzed in fear, but I thought you were imaginary. Isaac stuttered. Jack replied with a long, wordless growl. Ha 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 ha. Oh, I'm quite real, kiddo. In fact, I've been waiting for such a long time for this day to finally come when I could play with my best friend for life once last time. Before Isaac could reply, Jack's long arms stretched across the room and wrapped around Isaac's legs. The twisted clown began pulling him closer, dragging him onto his own wooden torture bed, as Isaac's fingernails scraped along the floor, ignoring their stains. Jack swinging grabbed 4-inch long iron nails from the workbench and pressed them straight through Isaac's hands and feet, nailing him to the wooden torture bed. Isaac growled in pain. He shouted at his captor, Ah, you damn clown-nosed freak. Laughing Jack just chuckled as he forcibly held Isaac's hand in place. You can say something nice. Don't say anything at all. Jack reached his long, curved fingers into Isaac's mouth, firmly grasping his tongue and stretching it out as far as it could go. The clown reached the back of it and grabbed a long, sharp knife from the table and slowly began to slice through the meat of Isaac's tongue. Once lathered up, Isaac's mouth began to overflow with blood. Jack responded by shoving a small metal tube through Isaac's tongue and acted temporary breathing hole. At this point, Isaac was already in great pain. His eyes clenched shut to avoid seeing the sickening horrors that was being to form upon his body. Come on, it's no fun if you don't watch, Laughing Jack said playfully. But Isaac kept his eyes tightly shut. Laughing Jack sighed. Suit yourself. Jack then horribly opened one of Isaac's eyes as he reached back of his big arm and took some long, pointed fishing hooks from the workbench. Slowly, Jack pushed the sharp end of the hook through the top eyelid, straight through the bottom of the eyebrow, and out of the top, permanently pinning it open. Then he took out a second hook, pushing it through the bottom of the eyelid and pinning it to the cheek. Jack repeated the process to the other eye before a long series of sharp metal hooks that made sure Isaac didn't miss out on any of the actions. Laughing Jack then took the same knife that he used to lop off Isaac's tongue and began to focus on removing Isaac's lips. Jack carefully sliced 2 strips of flesh off Isaac's upper and lower mouth, causing his teeth and gums to expose fully. It looks like someone hasn't been flossing regularly. Laughing Jack crackled under his breath as he reached back and grabbed the hammer. Isaac attempted to murmur some kind of beg for mercy, however, bloody Mosaic saved his throat. Jack raised his hammer into the air and swung with a twisted grin. He slammed down, giving it a loud crack. The iron hammer shattered Isaac's teeth like brittle clay. Jack dropped the hammer and began to howl with laughter as he tore Isaac's shirt, taking the sharpest knife and cutting straight down Isaac's chest all the way past the stomach. Isaac groaned with a sharp, stinging pain as the monster wormed his stretched fingers under beneath the skin Isaac's chest, peeling it back from. He was about to perform a horrible live autopsy. First, First, Jack began to pull out Isaac's intestines in the same manner as a magician would pull out a series of colorful claws out of his pocket. Then, after interest, Jack pressed on against the cold lips and began to blowing air into the foul organ. Once deflated, he twisted up with a shave, a loud chuckle, and said, "I can do giraffes too." Isaac remained still in pain and shock. The clown created a gently placed with a balloon animal beside Isaac's head. For the next trick, Jack reached deep into Isaac's open cavity and yanked out his kidneys, holding it in his hand. Jack turned to Kippy, friend. His drug kidneys really aren't my thing. Tossing the organ aside, laughing, Jack noticed Isaac beginning to drift into that. Too tighter, ready when we were nearly at the grid finale. Laughing, Jack examined as he reached and pulled the sleeves and pulled it out of a long internal needle. This eyes would perk you right up, Jack shouted as he slammed the needle into Isaac's there and injected the liquid right into his eye socket. Jack wiggled and twisted a needle further into his playmate's eyeball, and Isaac was reeled back into life to the feeling of a sharp needle scrabbling back of his eye socket with a sinister chuckle. Jack yanked the needle out, pulling the eyeball out with it. Isaac's red out now hung out of his socket by the eye sock dripping down the side of his face. "Well, now that I have your full attention," the insidious clown then took a long, crooked index finger, pointed a hole into Isaac's stomach. Then Jack lowered his head down towards the open chest cavity and stretched his mouth open wide. Within a few seconds, a torture filly cockroaches started crawling out of the clown's belly onto Isaac's open chest. Each vile roach crawled and pushed its way into the small opening in the Isaac's stomach, filling its form with the full disgusting within bugs, and his stomach became bloated with bugs. The roaches began to squirrelate his throat, squeezing their way out of his mouth with a nasty cavernous. Isaac was a few inches from death, his comforter knees beside him. "It's been a blast, kiddo, but it looks like our time together is about up. No need for tears, though, because I have planned to spread my friendship to all the lonely kids around the world." And with that, Laughing Jack reached into Isaac's chest and yanked out his still beating heart. As his life bled out that cold wooden bed, Isaac's life flashed before his eyes. He saw his mother, his father, the boarding school, his victims, and the last thought he floated through his mind was a very special Christmas when he woke up to find a beautiful carved wooden box that contained his very first friend. There was rumors that when the police finally found Isaac Grossman's rotten maggot-infested corpse weeks later on Christmas Eve, that even his face had been bashed and torn into bits. He almost looked happy.